Have you ever opened up TikTok for just a minute and then suddenly you look up and an entire hour has just vanished? If that sounds familiar, you are definitely in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into a feeling that so many of us have, this idea of TikTok brain. All right, let's get into it.
So here's the big question, the one that's on everyone's mind. Are all these super short, rapid-fire videos actually, rewiring our brains? Is it changing our ability to just sit and focus? It's a huge concern, and we're going to look at the evidence.
First off, let's just get a sense of the scale we're talking about here. By the beginning of 2024, TikTok had 150 million active users every single month in the US alone. Let that sink in. That's nearly half the country. So yeah, this is not some small trend. It's a massive cultural shift, and that's exactly why we need to understand what it's doing.
Okay, so what exactly do people mean when they throw around the term TikTok brain? Well, and this is really important, it is not an official medical diagnosis. It's a colloquial term, kind of like slang, for a whole collection of symptoms people are reporting, finding it way harder to concentrate, feeling this constant need for something new and exciting, and just this general sense that our attention spans are getting shorter. To really get to the bottom of this, we're going to break our investigation down into 3 key parts. We'll look at attention, then academics, and finally, we're going to peek inside the brain itself. And right away, we have our first piece of hard evidence. A 2024 study looked at over 200 young adults, and what they found was a pretty significant link. The more time people spent on TikTok, the more they said they struggled to stay focused. This shows it's not just a vague feeling, it's a correlation that researchers are actually documenting.
And that trouble with focusing, it seems to have some pretty real-world consequences. We're seeing multiple studies that show a direct connection between heavy use of these short videos and how well people do in school. As you can see here, heavy users tend to have lower GPAs. In fact, one study found that watching Reels accounted for a whopping 25% of the difference in academic performance between students. That's huge.
Okay, so we've heard from people themselves and we've seen the impact on grades. But what's actually happening on a biological level? This is where it gets absolutely fascinating. Neuroimaging studies suggest that compulsive use is linked with actual physical changes in the brain. We're seeing increased gray matter volume in the brain's reward centers, but also changes in areas like the prefrontal cortex. That's basically the CEO of your brain, responsible for things like focus and making good decisions.
So we've seen the what, the evidence of these changes. Now let's explore the how. What's the actual mechanism that could be driving all of this?
Well, it really all comes down to something called the dopamine loop. There's a reason you hear TikTok called a dopamine machine. Here's how it works. You see a new, interesting video, and your brain releases a little bit of dopamine, which feels good. It's a reward. So naturally, your brain wants another reward. What do? You scroll. And that cycle just repeats and repeats, basically training your brain to crave constant, immediate rewards. Now, think about the kind of mental muscles that this dopamine loop is exercising. On the left, you see what short-form video trains you to do. Jump between topics super fast. Always look for that next hit of novelty and process these tiny, disconnected bits of info. Now look at the right. These are the skills you need for school, for your job, deep reading, solving problems over the long haul, following a complicated lecture. You can see how these two skill sets are pretty much in a tug of war with each other. So, we've looked at the evidence and the mechanism behind it. But what does this all mean when you zoom out? What are the real-world consequences of these shifts in our thinking?
While this can affect just about anyone, the research shows that some groups seem to be more vulnerable. Young adults, especially between 18 and 29, have by far the highest usage rates. On top of that, one study pointed out that female users made up more than 2/3 of the cases of problematic use. And other factors, like having a lower socioeconomic status or certain personality traits like high neuroticism, also seem to bump up the risk.
And the fallout goes way beyond just feeling a little distracted. Studies have connected problematic use to a whole list of tough outcomes. More procrastination, higher levels of anxiety and depression, and even body image issues from all that social comparison. It can cause real conflict at home or at work. And get this, the symptoms can look so much like ADHD that it's actually making it harder for clinicians to give a correct diagnosis.
Now, it's really crucial that we're clear about what the science can say, but also what it can't say just yet. This is a super new area of research, and honestly, there are still a lot of big unanswered questions.
Yeah, we have to talk about the limitations here. Most of these studies are correlational. That means they show a link, but they can't prove that TikTok causes attention problems. It's a classic chicken or the egg thing. Maybe people who already have trouble focusing are just more drawn to these apps.
We also don't have long-term data yet, and a lot of the research just relies on what people say about themselves in surveys, which isn't always perfect. The bottom line is, the science is still trying to catch up with the tech.
Which brings us to one final and I think very important question. The algorithms that power these platforms are just getting smarter and smarter every day. In a world with endless, perfectly tailored content designed to grab you, choosing what you pay attention to, that becomes a kind of superpower. So the question isn't just what the tech is doing to us. It's about what we're going to do about it. What will you choose to pay attention to? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.